Warning: the following contains scenes of extreme nerdiness. Viewer discretion advised. Welcome to Burning Dinosaurs Laboratory. Here I am working on, it's kind of a translator of sorts for FrankenTruck. It is going to read sensors and translate that into what my factory gauges signal would originally have been, and it's also going to control the grid heaters on the Cummins. And in here is my ice water simulating a cold temperature, and I'll plug it in and show you what it does. Okay, so that little light and relay over here are acting as my grid heater. That water's not super cold, so it's not turning on for very long. I will be adjusting all the numbers to make it work like it should. But in here is a Arduino Uno, and reading multiple sensors in here on these wires, and then running these transistor MOSFETs, or Darlingtons I guess they are, to come over here and run this relay. And if I pull this sensor out of my glass of ice water and start to warm it up, you can see my gauge over there, and I've got these figures exaggerated a little bit, so that gauge is not totally accurate as to what it would be. You see there, it warmed up and it just barely turned on. And eventually it'll reach a point where it just won't turn on at all. So those temperatures, those numbers, are what I've got to figure out how long it should stay on, at what temperature, and at what temperature it needs to quit. And I'm using these oil pressure sending units for oil pressure, fuel pressure, and boost, and they will all translate into what my gauges can read. And here's not the tach that I'm going to use, but one similar that only goes up to 4,000 RPM. And down here where the fuel gauge is, this is from a medium duty truck. This is going to be my boost gauge down here. I'm going to relabel it and redo the gauge a little bit so it acts quicker. And so that'll be my boost. This will be my tach. I'll have a weight light of some kind up top for the grid heater. And probably on the fuel gauge, fuel level gauge, I'll probably put an LED for if the fuel level or fuel pressure gets too low. It can warn me that way. Time to change fuel filters or whatever I need to do. So I've got a clip of me testing out the pressure sending units on the gauges. So here I'm just getting an idea on how to read these sensors. So the clicking sound is supposed to be relative to the temperature that temperature sensor is reading, and as you can hear, it increases in speed as the temperature rises, and it will decrease as it cools back off. So now I at least have an idea of how to read them. So I have set this up so that it will turn a relay on at a certain temperature. Actually, I think on this one it's turning it on at 2 different temperatures. So this was one temperature and then that was another temperature. And then I can warm it back up, and this is just to basically read that the temperature isn't just falling, that I can actually find points within the temperature range that I can map to making it do one thing or another, give it one function or another. So the next challenge was reading pressures, and that's that oil pressure sending unit over there on the right. Just using an air pressure regulator, obviously, and so this will be used for reading fuel pressure, oil pressure, and boost. And like I showed on that tachometer, I will map this oil pressure sending unit to basically go to a reconfigured fuel level gauge to show boost right there on the tach, so it will look factory. And I'll have a picture of that set up here later on at the end of the video, unless I break this video into multiples. So at this point I'm just trying to get a reading of what the resistance is on that sending unit per pressure, and I'm jotting these down off to the side. So now that I've got a good idea of what the resistance range is on that oil pressure sending unit, I have written some code to read that from that sending unit and then also output the proper signal, which if anyone's interested is a pulse width modulated signal. So I'm not actually varying the voltage output, but the gauge is reading it as such. And so then I figured out what the range needed to be for that factory oil pressure gauge over there on the left, so that I could map it correctly to the air pressure that I was feeding into it. But there you go, this is going to be my FrankenTruck silver black box, which will be tucked up underneath the dash somewhere and mounted and never seen again, and hopefully no one will ever even know it's there, but I will. And I can also stream data from this to show anything else that I would want to know. I'm monitoring intake temperature in the actual intake manifold, and I'll probably pipe in the exhaust gas temperature into this same controller, and then that way I can log any of that or show any other custom gauges on a custom display using like a Raspberry Pi or something like that. And so it'll be a little bit like a little bit modern, a little bit old school. So there you go. Hey, thanks for watching. It was getting a bit long, so I decided to break it into multiple videos. So stay tuned. There'll be more coming at you.